All right, welcome everybody to episode 23 of the Motor City Metrics podcast. We have Uper looking all nice and fancy, and we got me making I had a little break. I just missed a show. I don't like to miss shows, but I'm back, and me and Uper are back at it
Well,
again.
that's the first. Well, first off, thank you. I have a caller on. I know that's very weird, but hey, we need to. If you opened the box there, we need to investigate why you're missing shows for the education of our audience. They have a right to know where were you last week, briefly, real quick. What were you
Last
doing?
Thursday, there's a festival by my house, so I took a girl to the festival.
Okay, very good. That's good to know. Now let's investigate this a little bit. Was this a first date?
Yeah,
First date. Okay, good, excellent. Did you go as part of a group, or was it just the two of you?
just the two.
See, now that's critical, John. This is a good sign. She now has already admitted that she can spend time alone with you without thinking that you're, creepy or dull. So that's good.
Wow,
Yeah. She didn't need the safety of a group date. That's excellent. So, did you pay for everything?
No, because we didn't buy anything, so there's nothing to pay for.
Well, that's a whole different kettle of fish right there. Okay. Did you open all doors for her?
No.
Oh, okay. We have things we're working on. We're going to work through this. That's fine.
All right.
Did you text her the next day or Instagram, whatever you do, or vice versa?
Yes.
You did. Okay. She was amenable to that.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Have you seen her since the date?
No.
Okay, so you have not. Has she committed to a second date?
No.
She's not committed. Okay. Has this as second date been discussed at all?
Yes.
Ah, okay. So she hasn't quite yet committed to the second date, but it's been offered out there.
Yes.
So you have the date offer hanging in limbo. How does that feel?
We'll see what happens, I guess.
Okay, now, real briefly, let's talk about this gal. If we equate her to, so you have to bring baseball into this. If this is about Tigers prospects, okay, is she Jackson Jobe, a first round draft pick who you're not sure what you got yet? Is she Gage Workman, who has some real strengths but has a few rough edges too? Or is this really you're punching up and this is a Colt Keith level prospect for you? What do we got here?
I'll just keep it at Jackson Job.
We'll the first round pick. Yeah. All right. Because we know you're org filler, right? You're a 4A guy yourself.
Wait, what? Dude, I am Ellie De La Cruz.
I don't even know if you have any letters of your name that match with Ellie De La Cruz. You both got an L. That's about it.
I'm Tyler Nevin then.
Yes, you are Tyler Nevin. Well, John, that's good. That's good that you're out. You got a dating life. That's very exciting. We're all going to live vicariously through you. Hopefully, she comes on for the second date, the critical second date. Now, here's the thing. If this second date happens, you're going to spend some money this time?
Sure, yeah.
And you're going to go to somewhere better than Arby's?
Yeah, we'll go somewhere better than Arby's.
Okay, maybe a Tigers game?
That'd be cool.
Okay, that's always good because there's action going on, music being played. You might get on Kiss Cam, who knows? There's a lot of things could happen. All right, so hopefully the second date happens. You got to let us know. But it sounds like, and so you think the first date went okay?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Better than average?
Yeah.
All right, well, like I say, hopefully you get the green light on date number 2. We don't have to discuss going to a fancy restaurant yet and hiding a ring inside the cake frosting for an engagement ring. We're not there yet.
No, not yet.
Okay, very good.
Not even close.
Maybe next month we'll get into that. How about those Tigers?
Okay, how about those Tigers? Thank you to Blood Right. Said good luck, John, with $5. That'll pay for maybe pay for my meal or something. Thank you, brother. Yeah, how about them Tigers? 33-43. Tough loss. Tough series against Minnesota, and now we got to face the best offense in baseball. 7-game road trip, 3 against the Rangers, then 4 against the Rangers, 3 against the Rockies. So yeah, how about them Tigers?
Well, it was one of those things. Obviously, yesterday's game was a hard one for everyone who follows the club to swallow because they were on the verge of winning that series. A really ugly throwing error on a play that the average Major League Baseball player makes at third base all the time. What are you going to do? The game slipped away from there. When we talked about the Tigers back around June 1st, I don't know if you remember, you and I were on and we talked about how tough the schedule looked. There's a lot of first place teams coming, and we knew June was going to be hard. But we looked at the Twins schedule, and I said if they were playing 7 games against the Twins, and I said if they just go 4-3 in those games, they at least will keep the Twins within distance of themselves, within hailing distance. And sure enough, in those 7 games, they went 4-3. It just didn't end that nice. It kind of left a bad taste in their mouth. But at the end of the day, they still went 4-3 against the Twins, gained a game, kept them within their sights. And, whether this team has a realistic chance of going places in the division or not, at least they survived a 9-game losing streak. They survived 7 games against the Twins, and they're not out of it. And I guess if there's any positives to take, that's it.
Yeah, I mean, they're not out of it. But, I mean, if you kind of look at the big picture of things, the record is fairly similar to what they were last year. They've obviously been a little bit better than they were last year.
Mm-hmm.
But still 5.5 games out. I mean, if you look at the Twins, I don't think they looked like necessarily world beaters. White Sox, all signs are pointing to them. It looks like they're going to sell. And then the Guardians, maybe they're the team that's going to wait in the wings again and kind of make a run at things. But, I mean, yeah, 10 games under 500, it really feels like an uphill battle at this point. I mean, even the thought of getting back to 500, to me, just – I don't know about you, Uper. I just don't really see it as a realistic possibility, especially with this team likely to sell at the deadline.
I mean, obviously, they're not a good baseball team. And we can talk about what they can possibly accomplish if they get hot and they get a few good performances. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of problems from top to bottom on the roster, right? But it is a weak division. And us as fans, just purely as fans, not as, I don't view myself as an analyst or anything like that. As a fan, if they're 5.5 games out, you can kind of just forget it while you're watching a ball game. You can forget about how many warts the team has, root for them to win, and see if by some crazy notion they get involved in the race. And until they're 10 games out, I'll have some interest in that. I don't expect it to happen. I'm interested to see what they do with this draft more than anything, and the trade deadline. But they're playing some enjoyable baseball. Even yesterday's game when they lost, I thought it was a good game to watch. It was just a tough ending to swallow.
Yeah, and you just mentioned the draft. I know you wanted to talk about the draft because there was a mock draft that came out. I've heard some rumblings of the catcher, Kyle Teal. What were your thoughts on the mock draft and just the draft overall?
It was ESPN's mock draft. It was Kylie McDaniel. To me, as someone who has read him over the years, he seems fairly plugged in. I have no reason to think that he's getting bad information ever. He had the Tigers taking Langford. However, a lot of the talk that he's been hearing, and also Joe Doyle, who writes for a different website, hearing the Tigers have some rumblings on Kyle Teal, and McDaniel put him at a 5 to 10% chance of them saving some cash for Teal, and then using that money to sign other players at higher bonuses in the first 10 rounds. That's certainly a legitimate option. I know a lot of people on Twitter and the Tigers Twitterverse are against the Teal move for saving money. I think people are thinking that that's going to save money for Illich. It really isn't. It just means they're going to spend money elsewhere. Almost every team in baseball spends their entire draft bonus pool. So they're not looking to save money per se. They're just looking to spend less on Teal if they do it, and then go out and get a couple high school guys to sign and forego college. And then hopefully instead of adding one really big name player like a Paul Skeen or whoever sign 3 players they really believe in long term and get the bulk of it instead of the quality. So it's a legitimate option. I still think, though, at the end of the day, they're going to walk away with Langford.
So, I mean, I would say, like, what do you think is the best option? Because I think this team's probably not a piece away, even if they get a Langford. I still think the offense is still a little incomplete. What is the best option realistically? Is it Kyle Teal and then saving money, or is it just going for the best player available, no matter what the cost is?
At the end of the day, I'm for adding premium talent. So I would hope they won't play the games of spending less on one guy to spend more on 2 others. That has worked. I mean, that worked. That's why Colt Keith is in this organization. They spent $500,000 on him. And that wasn't the level of money a 5th rounder usually gets. So it can work. But at the end of the day, I'd rather they just identify who they think the most talented guy left on the board is and put him in the system. And if that's Paul Skeens, great. If that's Wyatt Langford, that's a big fit for them too because they need the power.
Yeah, Wyatt Langford, I've seen him hitting some absolute bombs in the College World Series. Even Paul Skeens, I was looking at some stuff. I mean, I saw the commentator during the game saying he was the best college pitcher he's ever seen. Paul Skeens making waves right now. I don't know. Do you still think Tigers fans would be bringing out their pitchforks if the Tigers did take Paul Skeens with the 3rd pick?
Oh, there's going to be a lot of people who say don't take pitchers. They're going to bring up all the pitching disasters the Tigers have had over the years. They're going to say Casey Mize has never done anything. Jackson Jobe. I get it. But at the same time, Paul Skeens isn't those guys. Okay? I watched a ton of Casey Mize his last year at Auburn, and I watched a lot of Paul Skeens this year. Paul Skeens is better. Just pure and simple. He's better than Casey Mize at this point in time. So if they end up with, I will not shed a single tear if they walk away on draft night with Paul Skeens. That would be fine. Do they need offense? Yes, they do. But, that's what the rest of the draft can be focused on.
Yeah, and you did mention Colt Keith a little bit earlier back. Kind of not breaking news, but we're breaking it here on the pod. First time talking about it. Colt Keith has been promoted to AAA.
Hallelujah.
Yes. What are we thinking? Did you think there was an actual chance he could go straight from AA to the majors, or is this the right move for the Tigers?
Oh, I think you could kind of see the handwriting was on the wall that patience is going to be Scott Harris's MO. I think that there is something to the idea that they wanted Erie to qualify for the playoffs. People forget that, the Tigers don't own the Erie Seawolves. There's ownership groups in Erie, and they're going to make money by making the playoffs in the fall. So it's kind of a loyalty thing, I think, to keep some good players and get, once there's a chance at the playoffs, and get them in. So Erie made the playoffs now. They'll be in later this year. And I don't think it's any coincidence that Colt Keith moved pretty quickly thereafter. Now, Chris did tell me that before the game got scratched yesterday that Keith was in the lineup to play in the field again because he had been DHing a lot. And there was the whispers about the arm problems. So if he is going to be back in the field, that's obviously a good sign. Hopefully it was just something short-term. He had a sore arm and we move on. And it's not something lingering. Because obviously they want him to play defense and get better and take the reps and see where that goes. But it's going to be really interesting now to get him to Toledo. He's probably going to be the youngest guy in the league. He's going to be facing a lot of pitchers who have toyed around in the big leagues, which means, they have some big league experience. And he's probably going to see more breaking stuff than he saw at AA. We'll see how he does. It's going to be very fun. I don't think, as much as the Tigers, some of it, some people would like to fantasize that they're in the division race. I don't think Detroit's going to play it that way. I think he's in Toledo probably for the rest of the year. If he gets a couple at bats at the end of the year in Detroit, that's fine.
Yeah, that would probably be the best case scenario as he continues to hit well in AAA, and maybe we see him at the end of the year. I do worry a little bit about his defense. I was listening to your guys' pod last week about the defensive concerns you have with him. Also, the defensive concerns of Justin Henry Malloy. Doesn't look like he could be a long-term option at third base. which is unfortunate because I was looking at, Keith and Henry Malloy as kind of like a platoon for the future. I don't really know if that's a realistic possibility anymore, but maybe Colt Keith gets some run at second base. Maybe he's a long-term DH. Yeah, what were you thinking about that?
I would, I would say the only way he DH is if he has some kind of absolute chronic problem with his arm where he can't throw, and they can't stash him anywhere. Otherwise, a guy his age, they're going to find a defensive place to play for him someplace, whether it's right field, whether it's second base, even if it's first base. I mean, they'll find, if he hits, he'll play, right? And I think they'll want him in the field. And we dissect these prospects, every part of their game, because we have a lot of time on our hands. That's what we do, right? But at the end of the day, if Colt Keith hits, he will play. If Justin Henry Malloy hits, he'll play. The defense is not going to keep him out of the lineup in Detroit someday if he can hit major league pitching and contribute to their offense. Their offense has been so poor, they will find a way to make it work, I would hope, no matter what weaknesses they may or may not have. And I think we might see Justin Henry Malloy in left field at some point.
Yeah, but overall, I think a positive development. It's about time, I think, for him getting called up. We did have some comments in the chat. If you guys would like to leave comments or questions in the chat, we really appreciate it. We have one from Vox, I believe that's how you say his first name. He wished me luck, and then he said, "I try to fleece Atlanta and send them Erod and Alex Lange for Braden Shoemaker, I believe, the shortstop. Shoemake, Vaughn Grissom, and they would have to throw in Ian Anderson. I mean, that's Ian Anderson has been injured for a while. He hasn't pitched this year, has he? Right?
No, I think he pitched a little, but not well. Yeah. Box drives a hard bargain. I like it.
Oh yeah, I mean, you said we're getting our Keystone combo for the next 10 years, and we get a potential middle of the rotation, maybe if he's healthy, frontline starter. That'd be. I mean, we are giving up a lot, and I mean, if Atlanta, at this point, they've got their World Series, they're one of the best teams in baseball, but I don't know. They could maybe be a landing spot for Erod.
He's. I saw a note earlier today. He's taking the mound on Thursday in Toledo, so that's a good development. Obviously, when an injury initially happened, and you read about the pulley thing in the hand, it sounded worrisome that he wouldn't get on the mound much before the trade deadline. But if he's going to be pitching on Thursday, I don't know if he'll need 2 starts in the minors, but there's a good chance, by July 10th or so, he's back in Detroit and could get, possibly 3 starts before the trade deadline. And if he looks good, you'd have to think teams will want him if he's back to the level he was pitching at before the injury. I've often thought because it's a short contract and his opt-out, the Tigers wouldn't get much. But, I was listening to some guys on MLB Network, and they were making the case that, the other pitching that's going to be out there available isn't all that great. There's not that many great arms out there unless Stroman gets put out there. If the Tigers do add a reliever to the mix to go with Erod to a contender, they may pay up a couple of decent prospects, especially if they have any hope of keeping him as well. So, Vaughn Grissom and Shoemake, that would be pretty cool. That might be shooting a little high, but there's nothing wrong with shooting high. They should shoot high until they get shot down.
Yes, and Ian Anderson too. That'd be but yeah, and then we did have a comment from Flying with Mace who said he was asking about Peyton Graham. I believe about him getting called up. I mean, I'm never going to speak on something I don't feel like I'm confident on. But I know Peyton Graham, just looking at his box numbers, 51 strikeouts to 28 walks, 4 home runs and only 200 at bats. I mean, I don't know if he's necessarily known for his bat, if he's going to be a middle of the order hitter for Peyton Graham. But did you have anything to add on that, Uper? He's been relatively the same as he was last year. OPS is around the same. It's sitting at 700 right now.
He's at Lakeland, right?
Yes, he's at Lakeland. I guess the question was about him getting called up.
He got off to a slow start. He has hit better lately. So, I think the natural progression for a second-round pick from last year would be to get him to West Michigan. Jace Young is already there. Obviously, he started the year there. If Young moves up to Erie, and most people are projecting that here in July, there's a good chance Graham slots up to West Michigan.
Yeah, just looking at his last 10 games, he's hitting 341,
Yep.
OPS around 870. So, yeah, I mean, it's early, so we're going to see if that continues. But, yeah, I mean, I haven't done too much research on Peyton Graham. He was the 2022 second round pick, shortstop. I mean, I know our minor league guys aren't here, but did you have any like long-term outlooks for him? Do you really think he could be a starter one day, or
Well, a lot of athleticism. They love that coming out of college. When you saw him at Oklahoma, you saw a guy who could run, hit for. They thought that some power could develop, and as he gets older, there's a good chance of that. Obviously the age-old question is, can he stick at short? Right? Is he going to be a shortstop long term, or is he a third baseman? So a lot of times that depends on how much they grow and how their body fills out. But obviously, I would assume they will keep pushing him at shortstop as long as they can.
Yeah, what kind of came to mind for me is maybe like Zach McKinstry. Maybe he could kind of play that role and play all over the field. He has 15 stolen bases this year, so he's got some speed. But yeah, I don't necessarily view him as like the long-term option at shortstop. It would be nice, but I wouldn't really put that label on him.
Well, it's good to see that he's started to warm up, because his start to the season wasn't fantastic. So he's starting to hit. Always a good sign.
Yes. Speaking of guys who we need to see warm up, that is Nick Maton, who was sent down. Another thing that we kind of were expecting to happen that finally did. Tyler Nevin gets the call up. Wasn't Justin Henry Malloy, wasn't Colt Keith. So Tyler Nevin back in the big leagues. What could this realistically look like for the Tigers? Is just going to see more Andy Ibanez at second base, and yeah, just kind of your reactions to the move made.
I think it had to happen. I think his offensive woes were starting to leak off into the field for him, which we see happen. It goes both ways. Some guys start struggling on defense, and it starts hurting their offense. Some guys are struggling so much hitting that they bring it out with them to the field. Yesterday was just kind of the culmination. It was just, I think, the straw that broke the camel's back, right? He made a couple misplays. You can say he cost them the game. I don't want to go that far because, the offense scored runs in one lone inning. And when you only score one inning and you get 3 runs early, now you're asking your defense and your bullpen to be spotless the rest of the day to hold on to that, small lead. And Maton made his mistake, and it really cost them. I think the guy has some ability. I think there's some natural power there. But he just needs to go to AAA, face a lot of off-speed pitching, find a way to increase his contact. It really comes down to contact for him. And you can only hit 160 in the big leagues for so long, and they're going to make a change. The biggest thing was he was left-handed, and they kept batting him fifth relentlessly. I think Hinch never moved him down in the lineup. And I know part of that was because of the right-lefty thing, wanting to keep alternating people in the lineup. But, the guy who bats fifth bats more than the guy who bats ninth. So Maton was getting the fifth spot in the order at bats, and it was kind of killing the offense.
Yeah,
not that he was alone, but he was one of them.
And no, that's where I was going. Is like I look at Eric Haas. His numbers don't look that much better. I mean, his average is a bit higher, but his OPS was relatively the same, about 10 points higher. Jake Marisnick, his OPS was lower. It is lower than Nick Maton's right now. So my kind of thing is maybe what's next if there is a move that's next. But yeah, it's unfortunate because he was the guy. We all knew the Tigers needed an infielder. That was kind of the big need with them. Moving on from Willie Castro, moving on from Harold Castro, moving on from Jeimer Candelario, which, by the way, Jeimer Candelario, the Washington's going to get something for Jeimer Candelario at the deadline. And
I think so. He's playing well.
It's unfortunate, but
yeah, it is.
Yeah, so Maton was kind of that guy. And, there was some other guys we looked at, like Gene Segura, who hasn't really worked out in Miami. Colton Wong hasn't really worked out in Seattle, but I'm sure there was other moves that could have been made. But listen, I don't fault Scott Harris for giving him the opportunity. He was a 26-year-old. He had a good season last year and limited at bats. He was given an opportunity. Now, for me, it's just I would like to see someone other than Andy Ibanez getting at bats. Because at the end of the day, if this team's not competing, I want those at bats to go to young players. I want those at bats to go to players who can be something for this team in the future. No offense to Andy Ibanez. I don't really see that. I don't see how it's productive to give Andy Ibanez every day at bat. Sure, is he one of the better hitters in this lineup? You could make the argument, but you're not getting anything for him at the deadline unless he just goes on a complete tear. So that would be my question is, honestly, I'd rather see Tyler Nevin get at bats just because he's younger. Maybe could be something for this team moving forward. But yeah, I mean, and that kind of sparked another question for me with them moving on from Maton. I looked at the lineup tonight. You have Scope, you have Miggy, you have Andy Ibanez hitting third. Could this realistically look similar to what the team was like last year in the dog days of summer where, it was pretty rough watching this team try to hit offensively with the injuries that they've had. Obviously, we hope Riley Green can provide a spark, but I mean, just looking Andy Ibanez as your number 3 hitter, I mean, that's not ideal.
No, it's not. And, there are holes up and down the lineup. There's a lot of weak hitters. Even the hitters we view as productive, really league, if you compare their numbers league-wide, they're pretty bad. You got Torkelson struggling. You got Jake Rogers, who might hit a home run every 2 weeks, but otherwise is flailing around, uppercutting and missing. Obviously, they got to get Riley Green back. Akil Baddoo at some point should be beyond that quad injury. If he can come back and give them some production against right-hand pitching, that would help a lot. Kerry Carpenter is getting better. He's a solid presence in that lineup. And again, it comes back to what we talked about all through the winter. What is Spencer Torkelson? What does he become? Every at bat this year, I mean, we're watching, and he's getting scrutinized every at bat, and that is tough. That's got to be hard on him. So I try in my mind to keep it to the totality of the season. When we get to October, what has Spencer Torkelson done? So far, he's been better than last year, but that's about it. He's hitting the ball harder than last year, which is good, but there's no results from it. Will results start to happen? To me, that's what the year is really about, getting Riley Green back and getting Torkelson on a path to be a productive major league hitter. Carpenter is kind of the second tier. If he can become a long-term presence in the lineup, that's great. The rest of the guys are probably, who they have right now are probably pretty expendable up and down the lineup beyond those 3, which is amazing when you think about it. But that's kind of where they are. I don't think they're in a big hurry to get Meadows up. Malloy, when he was hitting 400 in April, they didn't even sniff getting him to the majors. So I don't see him coming anytime soon. I think they're going to keep going with this 4A contingent of guys and just do their best to get through the year.
Yeah, and I guess what could bring a sense of hope or excitement for this Tigers team is the pitching. Matt Manning will be back tomorrow. He gets to face the best offense in baseball.
Welcome back.
Yeah, welcome back. So that's a positive sign. We're hoping Skubal could maybe be back maybe sometime next month. I wouldn't expect Mize maybe at the end of the year, but that's maybe asking a little bit. Erod could maybe make a start or two. But yeah, I mean, Alex Fideo, Bo Brisky, they could be back as well. So that could bring a little bit of excitement for the Tigers pitching wise. But I mean, that's about it in terms of what we can see.
There's no question. If some percentage of the injured pitchers come back and they're productive, they should have nice, enough pitching to get through the season fairly unscathed. And again, what that's going to do is going to keep them somewhat competitive on the scoreboard every night, right? They're going to win some games 3-2. They're going to lose some games, 4-1, and not good. Like the one thing about this team with the pitching that they have and so on, they don't get blown out much. We haven't sat through too many 11-2 games, right? They tend to lose, or they might lose 5-0, or they lose to, Yesterday was 6-3, but it was a 3-3 game in the ninth. So they're playing presentable baseball for a 10 game under 500 ball club. But I think with these pitchers coming back, it's going to be very interesting to see who gets starts, who gets moved to the bullpen, or who gets sent to the minors. Is Joey Wentz going to stay at the big club, or is he going to go to the minors and work on things? Same with Olsen. Does Olsen keep working through his innings load in the majors? Does he go to the bullpen, or does he go back to Toledo and start? Don't know. Brisky doesn't have to come back right away. He has options left. He could just stay in the minors until they have an injury in the bullpen. So, because I was looking at the bullpen, there's really nobody who'd say, "Oh, he's got to go." Most of those guys have made a case for staying. Really, are you going to get rid of Will Vest? I don't think so. Are you going to get rid of Holton? He's pitched well. Alexander, yeah, okay, fine. If you want to move on from Tyler Alexander, I can understand that. But otherwise, Foley, Lang, Green, Cisnero, Shreve, nobody's embarrassing themselves.
Yeah, they've all been solid. I mean, I think maybe some of them could be involved in a trade. Realistically, they could get packaged together, and the Tigers could get a lower level prospect that could be something for them. But yeah, I think that's something to look forward to. Matt Manning returning, hopefully Skubal, and just seeing this pitching depth be what we all wanted it to be. And because that was one thing I was really excited about heading into the season, was I thought they built up a decent amount of pitching depth, and a lot of guys have gotten hurt. But I think with them coming back, we could see some interesting developments and some new storylines to follow heading into the dog days of summer.
Well, the pitching in this Rangers series is going to be very fun because obviously they're on the road this time. Texas scores a boatload of runs. I think they've scored in double digits more than any other team this year in baseball. Can Boyd keep the ball in the park tonight? That'll be it's always fun to see. His last start he did. But can he, allow 2 home runs or less against the Rangers? I'd like to think he can, but boy, it's a tall order. And Andrew Heaney's a decent pitcher, so it'll be interesting tonight. Tomorrow, Manning, his last outing at Toledo, I think he struck out 6, but he walked 5. Boy, if he's struggling with the strike zone against the Rangers, if he's getting behind in counts and he's got to come into the zone when they're expecting it, that could get ugly. But Matt Manning has a way of he just has a way of getting by, which is so amazing to me when he is pitching well. He doesn't look like he's overpowering, but all of a sudden it's the 5th inning and he's only allowed 2 runs or 1 run. So maybe he can do that again, but it's his first time out of the box, so we'll just have to see.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect too much from him. Also, Reese Olson got his first major league win. That was good to see as well.
He pitched well.
Yes, but it'll be an interesting development for the Tigers. I think that's the one thing fans have to look forward to, as well as the draft and the trade deadline. So a lot of interesting stuff coming up. Did you have anything else you wanted to add, you?
Well, everything you just listed off, it is amazing for a team that's 10 games under 500. I really think we are in for an interesting month of July with the draft, a third overall pick and a 37th pick, a trade deadline where it's hard to see exactly what they'll do, but there's possibilities of some things. And then, we have the players we want to watch improve, and then we have this nominal chance of contending in the division if they can get hot. So there's a lot of things for a bad team. There's a lot of things going on to keep our interest.
Yeah, and then obviously just some of the guys we want to see return. I think a lot of people are itching to see Riley Green take some at-bats again. Akil Baddoo, just seeing these guys get back. Eduardo Rodriguez, he was on one of the best runs of his career before he went down with injury. And also the young guys, Matt Manning, Tarek Skubal, and Casey Mize, that's probably a bit of a pipe dream. But just seeing these young guys back, I think will breathe some excitement into Tigers baseball. But yeah, that's all we have for you guys. Just a quick shout out for our draft show that's coming up next month. Me and Uper will be on the pre-draft show at 6:30, and then we'll have the whole panel on reacting to the Tigers draft and breaking down the picks and all that. But yeah, Uper, we're gonna get out of here before the game is about to start. Did you have anything else you wanted to say or add before we
Well,
go watch some
obviously,
Tigers?
you just have to keep us and the audience up to date on whether date number 2 happens. We want updates. We're living vicariously through you, John. Well, we all miss our youth, so there you go. But otherwise, it's going to be, can the Tigers get a split in Texas? If they do, that would be quite the achievement. That would be pretty darn impressive. If they can get 2 out of 4, let's see what happens. It should be a fun week.
Yeah. How about next 7 games? How about they go 4-3? They could beat the Rockies a couple times.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they can beat the Rockies. Rockies aren't very good. I mean,
they gave up 23 runs in 4 innings.
Exactly.
Yeah. But yeah, we'll see what happens. We will be back on Thursday with the whole crew. Thank you guys for joining us. Thank you for all the comments, questions, concerns. Uper, all the comments, questions, and concerns from you. And yeah, we will see you guys in the next one.
All right.
Take care.